Okay, folks, this is it. This is the moment where I'm going to cut off the double width, double weave blanket from my loom. What you see right here is I have not used any weft protectors at the end of the weaving. And so my plan right now is to cut off one layer at a time, and that's what these sticks are for. So I used one of my check sheds, the one that lifted the entire top layer, and slid in. I didn't have a single stick shuttle that was long enough to go across the whole width, but I've got a stick shuttle and about a 30-inch weaving sword over on the other side there. So I'm going to cut up here, tie off just what the top layer into bundles of loose overhand knots. And when those are all done, then I will do the same thing with the bottom layer. And at that point, we will be able to see how many mistakes I've got. So let's see how that goes. Back in a sec when I've done the cutting. Okay, so far so good. I cut the top layer, pulled the ends through the reed because obviously if I knotted them, I wouldn't be able to, on the other side of the reed, I wouldn't be able to pull the ends through. And I'm just doing some loose overhand knots. My plan when I finish, after I, maybe before I put this in for wet finishing, is to do a twisted fringe because that will best protect the cotton warp ends. And you can see that I've got 8 or 9, maybe 10 inches of fringe to go. So I'll be able to have a generous with a fringe without it being so long that it's unwieldy. And I'm just making these simple little overhand knots just to protect the weft. And then I will do the same thing on the bottom layer. I will, obviously, if I had cut before I separated the layers and then tied the knots, I would have tied the two layers together, and that would not have made it possible to see if where there were problems. So far, I am proud to say I'm not seeing any problems, and that makes me really happy. But who knows what's going to happen by the time we get to the front of the weaving. So back in a sec when I've got more weaving to show you. Okay, now it's time to pull the whole thing off. And I wanted you to share this with me because honestly, this is kind of my favorite part of any weaving project is the moment when I get to see everything revealed in its full glory. I mean, I'm already thrilled because this particular color of warp has been on the bottom the whole time, so I haven't had a chance to see what it looks like. And now I get to see it. So I have flipped up my ratchet dog. Sorry, yeah, my ratchet dog, and I have unhooked the little stop on my ratchet advance lever, and I'm slowly, I want to do this carefully because I did not on these knots, and I'm just trimming off long ends of weft as I go. When I tied these overhand knots, I did not cross them over each other for extra protection because it seemed like that was not really going to be wholly necessary. So now here I am at the front, and I am going to, on this end, I'm going to untie these bundles. I'm going to cut, you can just barely see it here. I'm going to cut my tiny little bit of header and tie, tie the knots into separate layers again. And at that point, we will finally get to see the big reveal to see if there are any spots where I caught the bottom layer and top layer together in a place they weren't supposed to be caught. Okay, so this is the moment. It turned out that when I wove my header, I did not do both layers at the same time. And the way you see that is Here's what was my top layer, and you can see this much finer leftover from my bobbin going through the warp ends. And on the bottom layer, you don't see that. So I'm not going to tie the knots yet. I'm going to do the big reveal, and this is the only place that is really big enough for me to do it. Oh, and I see some major problems right away in terms of weaving mistakes. However, I've got an ace up my sleeve. So I'm slowly untangling all my knots from the front apron rod. Yeah, I could have done this off camera, but I forgot they would be there. Slowly untangling them all. Slowly, slowly. Where all these warp ends have been not just tied in knots together, but then compressed, wrapped around the cloth beam, mushed together in very dramatic fashion. So while I'm untying, let me mention what the big ace up my sleeve is. So I had enough usable warp to weave almost 96 inches. And remember that my target was about 74 inches. So if it turns out that this first section just cannot be salvaged, then I will be able to do just to pull out the weaving at the beginning of the warp and say, screw it, it's not worth trying to fix. Because with these yarns, with these fibers, cotton and chenille, mistakes are not going to get folded away. They're not going to be hidden in the process of opening stuff up. Okay, so here's the moment. I just found a T-pin that was holding warp ends together, and I am here seeing a problem in my weaving, and where the two layers are woven together, and I'm going to fix that not with my scissors, but by just trying really hard. We'll see how. Okay, it's not working. But that's something. What I want to do is pull out the one warp end of two that is causing the problem. It's just going to take me longer to find it. Okay, so I'm seeing lots and lots of problem areas in here, and I'll show you in a different video how I'm going to fix those. Okay, and wow, this area where the warp ends are caught looks like it's maybe the same warp end, maybe a couple ends over. So I do have catches between layers at the beginning of my weaving. But the farther I go in my weaving, the fewer problems there are. And weirdly, I noticed this as I was weaving this weekend. Weirdly, the further I got on my warp, the fewer tension problems I had. Everything was kind of working out. So this gives you a sense of how double width, double wide can look when it's done well, even when it's not done great, but done, reasonably well. And that gold thread in the middle, the camera is fixating on my fingertip there, that gold thread in the middle at the fold line is one that I will definitely pull out if, even after washing and steaming and all that stuff, the warp ends around it look too bunched up, I can pull out not one, but two of them. And that will, again, make that line a little less obvious. So let's pull back from this a little bit and try and get a sense of what the colors look like. And wow, this is pretty impressive. it's very subtle. And if I had been choosing colors for myself, I might have gone with a kind of bright light green instead of this dark green because it would have really popped. But this is really, I think, I hope, going to thrill my friends because they chose the colors. We went back and forth and back and forth. And there's my back. Now you can see the full panoply of these color choices. And one of the things I really like is how this stripe is a different blue from this stripe, but the two purples on the ends are the same. It's just this nice little asymmetry that I love. Also, that the green stripe in the middle is not twice as wide, but considerably wider than the two green stripes next to the purple patches. So let's call it a day on this one for now, and I will next weekend because I'm too tired. I've been weaving most of the morning trying to get this done, and I will come back to this next weekend when I'm fresh and show you how I'm making repairs, not just to these catches and to unwanted floats, but to fixes on the salvages because there's definitely some cleanup I'm going to need to do there. And but it's so exciting to get this off the loom, and now I can get another project on the loom, and that will be great. So come back next weekend for more because this blanket is still far from finished.